Well, a very good morning, everyone. It's lovely to be with you again, and a happy Easter to you all. I hope you've had a great Easter holiday, whatever you've been doing, and have made good use of the time that you've had at home, but also the great weather that we've been able to enjoy. Now, one of the things I've enjoyed reading recently is this book. It's a biography of Bill Bowerman, perhaps an unfamiliar name, although most people will know the thing that he is most famous for. He was the track coach to the University of Oregon for a long time. He was track coach to the US Olympic team in 1972. But he's most famous for inventing a running shoe, which was the first ever shoe produced by Nike. And he and his friend Phil Knight ended up building Nike from a company that sold homemade shoes out of the back of a van in the 1970s into the global brand that we know it as today. But the thing I particularly enjoyed was the story of how the very famous Nike swoosh came to be. In 1971, Phil Knight decided that they needed a logo for this new company that they were starting, and he approached Carolyn Davidson, who was then just a graphic design student at Portland State University in her early 20s. And she designed what you see on the screen for them, which became known as the swoosh. Not instantly, they couldn't think of a name for it, but it gradually became known as the swoosh. They very generously paid her $35 for her design, and she signed over to them all the rights to use it and to claim anything from it. Now, of course, that could be another horrible story of a great global corporation ripping someone off. But actually, in 1983, when Nike went public, so 12 years after she first designed it for them, she was invited to a party where she was given a diamond ring and 500 Nike shares, which in today's value would be worth about $1 million. So she did okay out of it. Phil Knight, when he first saw it, said, "I don't love it, but it'll grow on me. I don't love it, but it'll grow on me." I think one of the reasons why the Nike swoosh has been so successful is that it's very simple, and certainly in English-speaking countries, it's very positive. It looks like a tick, doesn't it? And we all know that a tick is a good thing, a positive thing. And it got me thinking, again over Easter, that actually the story of Easter is the story of a tick as well. We begin with the life of Jesus. We go down into the crucifixion as Jesus gives his life. And then we come up in the resurrection, the great ending. Starting in one place, going down into the valley of death and up to new life and a great ending. And in many ways, it is actually the shape not just of the Easter story, but of the whole Bible. We begin with creation, God making mankind in the garden. We go down into the fall of Adam and Eve and everything goes wrong. And we end up with the glory of heaven as Jesus' death provides a way for us to be forgiven and provides a way to come to new life. And not only is it the story of Easter and the whole Bible, it's also the story of pretty much every movie and book that we will be familiar with. You begin with your hero or heroine, something goes wrong, some disaster happens, and usually you end up with a happy ending. So we begin in Frozen with our heroine Elsa and her sister Anna. Everything goes wrong, their parents die, Elsa finds out she's got these terrible powers, but we end up with a happy ending and everyone's happy. The great works of English literature, think of Jane Eyre. We begin with our heroine Jane. Everything goes wrong as she's going to get married, but the wedding's called off at the last minute and all these secrets come tumbling out. But again, we end up with a happy ending. It's the story of pretty much every Shakespeare play. It's also probably the story of The X Factor and Britain's Got Talent and Love Island and all those things. We go down into a dark place before we come up into a happy ending. And it is the shape often of human life as well. And I wanted to bring to you one verse, Hebrews 12, verse 2, which brings back that idea. Let us fix our eyes on Jesus, who for the joy set before him endured the cross, scorning its shame, and sat down at the right hand of God. He endured the cross. He went down into the darkness and to death. And he did it because he had the joy set before him, the happy ending that he knew was coming. And the happy ending was not just for him, it was for all of us, that Jesus offers forgiveness and new life to those who will trust in him. And I wonder whether we can also apply that same shape to what we're experiencing at the moment. We've been through normality and we're into the lockdown. And in many, many countries in the world, we're in a dark time at the moment. Some of you have been ill, some of your families have been ill. Within the college community as a whole, it's inevitable that some of us will know people, whether well or distantly, who have died from the coronavirus. And that is a great sadness to all of us. We're down at the moment into that dark place. But I want to give you both an encouragement and a challenge from that. The encouragement is that God can use it for good. We've seen the shape of Easter. We've seen the shape of the whole Bible. We've seen the shape of every great story follows that tick down into the depths and then up into new life. We don't know what God will do with this. We don't know what his plan is. But we do know that God can bring great good out of great sadness. Now, it doesn't make the experience any better. I'm sure even though Jesus knew what was going to happen at the end of the story, it didn't make the crucifixion any more comfortable for him physically or emotionally. But we can trust that God will bring great good out of this current sadness. But alongside the encouragement, there is the challenge as well. I've put there on the screen a question mark. We began with normality. We're into the lockdown, perhaps relatively soon, maybe in 3 weeks, 6 weeks, 12 weeks. We will emerge from the lockdown. And what will happen? Will we learn any lessons? Will we learn the lessons of how to appreciate our families more? How to be thankful for our health? Will we learn the lessons of appreciating the world around us and the outdoors for many who've been stuck indoors? Or will nothing change? Will we emerge from the lockdown with great intentions and then within a few weeks everything will be back to normal? That would perhaps be a sad ending to this sad time. It is important that we do learn something from this experience that the whole country and the whole world is sharing at the moment. I want to encourage you again, those words, fix our eyes upon Jesus, who for the joy set before him endured the cross. He went through that darkness, that suffering, that death, to come out to new life and great joy. Let's take encouragement that God can work great things from great sadness, but also the challenge, will we learn a lesson too?